Right, it's 14 minutes past 4, and you know what time it is and what to do when it is this time. 99.3 Nigeria Info. I'm Outgoing, and this is Countdown 2019, and where we're going to be discussing all the big issues. This is after the elections, counting down to the inauguration ceremony, which this month we're just counting just a couple of weeks to that event. But a lot of stuff been happening as we count down to the inauguration ceremony. But first, with the ideas segment, IOB is going to be talking with the Executive Director of the Social Economic Rights Accountability Project, Sarah Adetokunbo Mumuni, who will be talking to us about lawmakers and executives who are awarding themselves pensions, the morals behind this, and all of that is what we're going to be looking at during the ideas segment and the ethics question. You can follow the program on Twitter, Countdown 2019, at Rotimi Sankore, at Obo, at SS Equity, at Nigeria Info FM, and at Ideas Radio NG also to send your questions and tweets there. If you've got questions also and comments on WhatsApp, we will have those on 08095975805. IOB, good evening.
Good evening.
Adetokunbo Mumuni.
It's a pleasure being here.
Good evening, Rotimi Sankore.
Good evening.
And good evening, Georges Magnomusido. I just forgot.
Good evening.
So we have
That's
a
why
full
he's
house.
a good reporter, because he'll be a fly on the wall, and people will be saying things, and they won't know, and they won't remember that a journalist is present. But
Bienvenue, you are. He's from Paris, eh?
Oui, bien sûr, bien sûr. Yes, I was away last week, but I think that for the last 2 weeks we've been looking at, not so much looking forward to the inauguration, but we've been looking back to what the outgoings have been doing. And because to lose an election is one thing, but to have nothing with which to cushion the fall from elected position grace is another thing. And certainly with regard to our outgoing elected legislators, there has been an astonishing level of concern for their welfare and the possible period of unemployment that they may have to spend. And it's not a new thing, but it's something that really requires us to ask, does this reflect integrity? The amounts that, the size of the severance packages that our outgoing lawmakers and our outgoing executives are awarding themselves, do they reflect integrity? Do they reflect ethics? Who is accountable? You see, yes, we're in a democracy, so we'll say these people are democratically elected. But is that what democracy is about? Or does this actually underline for us the possibility that to have a democracy without integrity, without ethics, and without accountability is in a way to have no democracy at all? To discuss this with me, apart from my co-presenter Rotimi Sankore and Georges, is the Executive Director of the SERAP, Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Adetokunbo Mumuni. You're welcome
It's a pleasure
on
being here.
Ideas. And perhaps you can first of all just give us some background facts, because we saw some huge billions being devoted by the outgoing National Assembly to its own the welfare of its own outgoings. We also have the problem of people who were governors now having other positions, whether as senators or as ministers, collecting huge amounts. And I just want to put it in context. The other day, a minister in the British government was sacked for misdemeanor of leaking security matters. And the report was that although he will continue as a member of parliament, his severance package will be £17,000. Now, I know we will talk about the to of pounds. But nonetheless, it gives us, so it's not that the concept of something to cushion the fall is unknown, But what in a poor country or a country full of poor people, as Nigeria is, we have the largest number of people living in poverty. We have huge numbers whose pensions are unpaid. What is the background to this?
Thank you very much. You see, when amount as terrible as this.
As what though? What are the amounts?
For example, you see, to me, I don't see it in the context of political parties.
No.
To me, the parties are
equal opportunity offenders.
One party is 6, the other party to me is half a dozen. So I can't see any difference, because if you look at a breakdown of the states, you see that PDP states, APC states are in this. For instance, for example, in Anambra State, one legislator who is leaving will collect 73.78 million naira.
No, one legislator.
Yes, in Anambra State.
Or 17 legislators.
No, 17 legislators will go home with 73.78 million naira. Plateau State, 16 lawmakers will go home with 69.44 million naira. In Edo State, in the South, 15 lawmakers will get 65.1 million naira. In Adama State and Akwa Ibom State, at that 14 non-returning lawmakers will get 60.76 million naira. We can go down like that. You will see that what we have cut across the parties. Now, the next question we should ask ourselves is, how justifiable are these pays? The Nigerian worker, the majority of Nigerian worker is still talking about 30,000 naira per month.
Minimum
monthly allowance.
Wage.
Now,
wage for work done.
For work done.
It's important that we say for work done, because here we're talking about people who have been paid for the work that they did as governors or legislators, and they're now going to be paid for work that they are not going to be doing.
Yes.
So it's an important distinction.
Very well. So I look at the ethics and the morality of these payments. Is this payment ethical? Is it morally sound? Now, I know that there is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. One of the principles that is so evident in that convention is that people that have political powers must not place themselves in a position of deliberate conflict of interest. When you now appropriate the money that should belong to the Nigerian people in a manner as to personally benefit whilst you are in the office or whilst you have left the place, you have simply used the benefit of being in the place to now start awarding or assigning this type of money to yourself. To me, that is unethical, that is morally reprehensible. And again, if we look at the life of the general Nigeria, the average Nigeria, is this amount justifiable?
Well, I think that just to play the devil's advocate for a bit, because in the case of High Court judges or Court of Appeal or Supreme Court judges, they are made to understand that upon retirement, not only will they be paid properly when they are in a job, but also on retirement, they will also be paid properly. And the objective of those payments, which are not quite up to probably what our legislators enjoy, but nonetheless are quite handsome by ordinary standards, is so that they will not feel that they have to do anything that compromises the dignity or integrity of their position in order to provide for an old age which they fear may leave them exposed to the vagaries of economic cold winds. So they pay. So judges are paid properly, and their pensions and their accommodation after is also guaranteed. Now, our legislators and our governors, don't we want them also to feel, to elevate themselves above their personal concerns when they are making laws and so on? And therefore, shouldn't we make them also know that they're going to be comfortable when they go?
No, what I see in it is that let us look at the first notion or the first idea regarding what makes pension desirable. One would have worked for a state or for the federal government almost to the end of his productive life.
You mean that's between a judge,
The judge, yes,
as who is working
who is
compared to
For
a
example,
4-year legislator?
Yes. For example, a judge, before he retires, if it's High Court judge, age 65,
Yes.
the Supreme Court Court of Appeal judge is 70. Now, those are the ages that one will have passed his prime, so that at the end of the day, you don't say he should start struggling again.
I see.
That is the point.
Okay.
But for instance, a legislator who was in office, elected for, let me say, maximum 16 years or 20 years, if the legislator that we're talking about enters the position at the age of 25, 16 plus 25 will give us.
They can still go out and work.
Exactly,
is what you're saying.
that is the point. So we cannot be comparing what we know with the judiciary with what we know with this set of legislators or the executive members of government.
But then what is the sanction? Because, you have, in one say, you have the governor sitting there saying, I have a pension request, my dear legislator friends. And the legislators are saying, we also have a pension bill, my dear governor friend. So it's a real case of one hand washing the other. That's how it appears.
That's what it is.
And so where is the sanction? What? Because we voters seem to just feel that, well, that's what we should expect. There's no sanction from us.
You see, we should. I think what should happen is that Nigeria should start discussing this thing, because it is, to me, it's almost in all the states where legislators and governors gang up to offer themselves this type
Gang up is the word.
Yes, to offer themselves this type of amount. So I think we have to have a discussion around this thing to see let's look at the morality of all these payments, proposed payments, and I think there is the National Salaries and Wages Commission that should look at all these things critically, so that Nigerians don't get shortchanged at any point in time. That to me is very, very crucial.
But in a federation, should this be a matter for a national decision? And let's not forget that in some parts of the country it's quite cheap to live. In other parts of the country, you pay an arm and a leg before you can even get the 2-room boys' quarters.
That's true. But I think there should be a national average. Even if you want to make payments to people that are served.
Okay.
Yes, we should have something like a national, let's say, below, we cannot go above this. We can go below this. So that to me makes
But then how
sense.
does that square with the idea of federal government and the independence of states?
You see, what I see is that, you see, if there is nothing like a national average, any state can say we want to pay our own legislators anyhow, and that to me will make it too dangerous for the system. That's the point that must be made.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think we also have to look at the fact that not only do these states, many of them are either in arrears of the payment of pensions, they're not even paying salaries, some of them, despite being bailed out by the federal government. And one kind of wonders what the legislators and the representatives of the executive who award themselves these kinds of sums feel about that position, that they happily watch workers queuing up under, and literally the hot sun, to claim their pensions, some of them expiring on the line, having to come and prove that they're still alive, and all these other hurdles that they have to jump through. And on the other hand, we have these people who, as you say, not only are they not out of their productive lives, they're also very well connected. So if it comes to getting contracts and other things from which they can make money, if it comes to even being appointed, because in some cases we have people who were governors who are now ministers, or who go to the legislature. I mean, we've actually talked about the Senate as a retirement home for some former governors, although some former governors are not going to be able to retire to the Senate as they had hoped. But they're not going to be feeling the pinch financially in any way at all.
Yeah, because of the position that they had occupied. So they are not in the same categories like other Nigerians. Let us face it. A former governor that had occupied a position for 8 years cannot compare with any other Nigerian. That's sincerely the position. So I think we should start this discussion. Let's have a national average of what is payable that make economic sense in view of the realities of life of Nigerians. Yes. You can't say you are our legislators or our former governor and you'll be living out of this world compared to the life that Nigerians in your state live. For example, about 3 days ago was the May Day. A lot of workers and pensioners were reeling out the litany of woes that they face.
Yes.
Salaries have not been paid for some 30 months. Pensions areas have not been paid. So what then is the position? So I think we should start having a discussion to talk about a national average. Below this, you cannot go, but higher up there, you cannot go.
Okay, yes. I want to thank you very much, Adetokunbo, for your insights into the ideas, and we know what ideas stands for: integrity, democracy, ethics, and accountability in this issue of huge pension payments and severance allowances. And that's not talking about some governors get houses, cars every regular or irregular intervals, and so on.
When we come back after the break, I mean, we need to, for the main program, we need to look into it in more detail, because the devil is in the detail. We can then see actually how dastardly,
or not.
Well, like, it's extremely dastardly what these people are doing. I mean, like he said, we need to have a big discussion on it. And it is how dastardly it is that will drive that discussion. I mean, we need to nullify this thing. It's not a question of complaining. We actually need to nullify. It's just criminal. I mean, what will happen after 30 years of democracy when we have thousands of these people?
Well, I mean, but this is actually
the point that you have made. It makes complete sense.
But the point is that has anybody run on a platform of I am going to tackle this? It's just not a campaign point. It's something that after the elections have been won or lost, we all start to groan about it. But I think that the point that Adetokunbo Mumuni makes is that because the conversation has been going on. We've been groaning since 2003. The question now is that beyond groaning, the discussion about what to actually do